What's new in MarkLogic 12? I'll be your host. My name is Mitch Shepard. I'm the Senior Product Manager for MarkLogic Server. Joined with me today is Drew Winkowski. He's the Senior Principal Solution Engineer, and James Kerr, our Software Fellow and Product Manager for MarkLogic Server. Today we have a pretty packed agenda and some exciting stuff to discuss. We are going to be giving you an overview of what is new in MarkLogic 12. We'll be introducing a handful of new features accompanied by a demo. And then wrapped up at the end, we'll talk about some practical tips for how best to upgrade to the latest server version. To start off, MarkLogic 12 is really built to help organizations move faster, scale smarter, and deliver more trustworthy AI and analytics experiences. We're going to walk through 5 key benefits of this release, the first being maximizing Gen AI retrieval accuracy. We've added native vector search to complement our existing full text, semantic, and metadata search. This hybrid approach ensures that Gen AI systems retrieve the most relevant and trustworthy information, and that's really critical for enterprise-grade RAG solutions. To help answer business questions faster, we're adding virtual views, which let you create relational views on the fly without needing to re-index or add storage overhead. So this means the teams can explore data and generate insights in real time, accelerating that decision making and reducing the IT bottlenecks. To meet modern application demands, we've added dynamic host management, so you can now scale your cluster up or down based on demand. And this ensures a high performance during peak usage while also keeping your infrastructure costs under control. With regard to modernizing platform support, we've improved our platform support to include Red Hat 9, Amazon Linux 2023, Windows Server 2022, and a rootless Docker image. And this really gives you flexibility to modernize your stack and deploy in the environments that best fit your organization strategy. Last, security is always a priority. With the support of the latest encryption standards, and FIPS 140-3 is now ready. MarkLogic 12 helps you meet today's compliance and risk management requirements with confidence. So together, these enhancements really make MarkLogic 12 a powerful foundation for building intelligent, scalable, and secure data-driven applications. Speaking about maximizing Gen AI response accuracy, this is really a primary step on your AI journey, is how do you and your organizations leverage Gen AI? While finding relevant data isn't new, the tools and techniques are evolving, and Gen AI offers significant gains, but it also introduces new challenges. So as the saying goes, garbage in, garbage out. MarkLogic 12 is going to provide a flexible platform for implementing retrieval augmented generation, RAG architectures, by combining multiple indexing and retrieval techniques into one system. Vector search. MarkLogic 12 introduces native vector search, which is essential for next-gen AI applications. This feature will allow customers to store vector embeddings directly in JSON or XML, enabling large-scale similarity searches across vast volumes of unstructured content. Developers can represent documents or parts of documents as vectors and search against them. And these vector operations can be combined with our existing search techniques such as structured metadata, full text search, graph, and geospatial to really support hybrid or multi-model RAG strategies. Why does this matter though? So traditional keyword search often falls short when you're trying to find semantically similar content, especially in large unstructured databases or data sets. Vector search bridges that gap. So for example, if a user asks a question in natural language, vector search can retrieve documents that are conceptually related, even if they don't share the same keywords. Some use cases may include RAG, which helps large language models pull in the most relevant background information for better answers, recommendation systems to help improve suggestions by understanding what users actually like, not just what they clicked. Similarity searches make it easier to surface related content, even when the wording might be completely different. And risk management. It helps spot those early warning signs by connecting patterns across large volumes of unstructured data. And because MarkLogic integrates vector search with that full text search via our Optic API, you really get the best of both worlds. You've got the semantic relevance, precise filtering, really that delivers the highest quality results for your AI and search applications. BM25, it's an industry standard relevance ranking technique that applies weighting based on document length beyond what our current relevance ranking algorithms previously supported. This new capability will allow customers to fine-tune full-text search relevance while also leveraging existing indexes, avoiding that upfront cost of vectorizing all content. So combining that vector search now with BM25, it's delivering a cost-efficient GenAI search performance. So for use cases that don't utilize vector capabilities, full-text search with BM25 scoring is similarly an inexpensive method to rapidly sift through billions of documents. And last but not least is the shortest path algorithm. It's commonly used to navigate, to do navigation or network analysis use cases to find the shortest path between a number of nodes or within a certain number of hops between nodes. This wasn't originally a feature that let me clarify that. It wasn't originally a feature that we envisioned as part of our machine learning AI roadmap, but as we are seeing more and more in that usage in some of our early test trials, any and all techniques are really being explored to be able to find and identify the most relevant information to feed LLMs. And that's for analysis or summarization. So what that means is that the shortest path algorithm, it really adds yet another tool to the platform so that our users can leverage and implement different RAG techniques. Now, these are the breadth of new capabilities that are coming to MarkLogic. I'm going to pass it over to our solution engineer, Drew, and he's going to walk us through the multi-model search. So Drew, I'm going to pass it over to you. Let's see, now.
Perfect. So we're going to talk about hybrid search today. Hybrid search is a mechanism of combining different models, retrieval models together.
You have not showing the right slides. There you go.
Yeah. So hybrid search is a way to combine different retrieval models where you find the most relevant content for each search paradigm and bring them together. So we're going to look at a way to do this using both lexical indexes and vector indexes. So we want to find the most accurate content through each one of those models. So how do we do that? When a user comes in and asks a question, we'll analyze that question in a few different ways. And we'll pass it through a lexical and metadata search against the documents, as well as a dense vector search. And what the documents look like in the database is a combination of text, so your traditional XML or JSON documents, additional tagging that you can add for classification, for example, using semaphore, and then the actual vector embeddings. And those are important for enabling the vector searches. All that is stored in the same database, and you're able to cross-query it at any time. So at the end of finding those records based off of each of those paradigms, we can then calculate a hybrid score, and that will allow you to re-rank those items in a way to put the most relevant content up top. So lexical search is interesting. This is the traditional way that a lot of customers have been using MarkLogic search in the past. Right now, we're actually looking at a query coming in natural language. So what is the effect on glucose in mice while using GLP-1 drugs? Well, we're using a few different techniques here to identify keywords, concepts, and phrases. In this case, we're using semaphore to analyze the string to find the most relevant search terms. You could also use the large language models against the question too to identify keywords and phrases. Once we have that information, we can then pass it down to the lexical search index and then sort them using relevancy scoring algorithms. As Mitch highlighted, the new BM25 method, or you can utilize the TF-IDF method as well. So vector search is interesting. So when you encode the data, you're using an embedding model, and you're going to use the same embedding model of your choice to encode the incoming question. So when a question comes in, we're going to take that question, pass it over to the embedding model, and generate that vector. And a vector is just a long sequence of floating point numbers. And the LLMs are going to use the data that comes back from the search for RAG. And how we find that content in the database is using search algorithms against vectors. So approximate nearest neighbor is one of the methods we're going to show in today's demo. So jumping over to the demo, we're going to show a few different use cases here. So the traditional lexical search, I can come in and search using keywords, and we'll get that information back. And these are research articles that mention these particular keywords, so glucose and GLP-1s. As we see, we're doing a lexical search here and highlighting this information and coming back in relevancy order. Each of these articles also have a vector embedding associated with it. So using vector search on its own, we can then do things like recommendations. So we're seeing what articles are semantically similar based off of the vector comparisons. So this is using the approximate nearest neighbor search method to find the articles that are similar, semantically similar to the one you're on. So the next thing we're going to do is actually combine the two. And this is in an agent similar to what you would see a chatbot. So I'm going to say, what is the effect on glucose in mice using GLP-1 medications? So behind the scenes, we're using both lexical and vector search to find the most relevant bits of content. We provide those bits of content over to the large language models, and we get an answer. Since we supply that content over, we can also have citational references back to the articles that we want to show. So we can trust the answer, but we'll also verify what's coming back from the large language models. So to peel the covers off a little bit, we'll look at how we build some of these queries using the Optic API. So the first query we're going to show is how to build a query against the documents using lexical search. So we're doing a collection query to look for those chunks of articles. And then we're putting words and phrases in here. So glucose, GLP-1s, peptides, etc. We could also specify a scoring method. So when we execute this query, we're getting back the top 10 results with a score. And this is the scoring algorithm, the score based off the BM25 score. So that's a single way to just use traditional lexical search. The next methodology is we're going to use vector searching. So we can see here that we have a vector for our question, and we can specify a max distance. And we're going to do an ANN query and find the top results. So when we pass this along, we can find semantically similar articles just based off of the vector embeddings. We can see that the vector is actually in the JSON itself, and that's what we're comparing. Additionally, we get a distance score here to see how far off this vector is to our question. So finally, what we do is take those two queries, as we highlighted, the lexical and vector query, and we're going to join these two. We're doing a full outer join in this case because lexical search can find some content and vector search can find other content. So there may not be an exact match together. But what we're going to do is that we're going to combine the scores so the most relevant content comes to the top. This hybrid score is combined by using the vector score API that's built into Optic. So we can give a score case for our vector as well as our distance case, join in some additional metadata, and then order by that hybrid score. So when we do that, we can see we have those records coming back. We have our distance, we have our score, and now a hybrid score. So the most relevant content based off of each paradigm has been combined and brought to the top. So when we're feeding the LLMs, we're giving the most accurate content. Okay, James, I'm going to pass it back over to you for continuing on the presentation.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Drew. The next section, I'm going to talk about some additional features in MarkLogic 12. MarkLogic 12 introduces a new feature called virtual views, building on our existing template-driven extraction capability, which was introduced a number of versions ago. This offers customers a more flexible way of projecting document data into rows and columns for relational views. So unlike traditional or existing TDE views, virtual views extract data at query time, requiring no reindexing or storage overhead. So this is ideal for longer running ad hoc analytics on large data sets. And because virtual views can be joined with what we would now call materialized views, or views that are extracted during data ingestion, because those two paradigms can be combined together, we offer you the best of both worlds for flexibility and performance. The query engine will automatically optimize by using materialized columns if they're available, and also the universal index to reduce the working set of documents needed to resolve a query against those views. So the two major use cases here are really about large scale and ad hoc analytics. Right, so virtual views are perfect for running complex queries across large data sets, especially if you don't want to have to pay the price up front of indexing all of that data while you're ingesting it into the database. Since they don't require materialization, you can analyze the data on demand, balancing performance and infrastructure efficiency. The second use case is around data exploration and discovery. So because you can create these views on the fly without triggering reindexing, they're perfect for defining views, for exploring the data projected in different ways, sort of on the fly. And Drew's going to show that in a little briefly in demonstration. So real quickly, sort of a quick reminder about how TDEs work. So template-driven extraction is a way that you project the row structures from your documents. And prior to MarkLogic 12, that's done at write time or into materialized views. And in MarkLogic 12, we allow you to do that at query time or into virtual views. So you can take a document, like a JSON document, you can project the names and data types into the columns, and then you can, using powerful XPath expressions, you can select the parts of the document that you want to project into the values in your view. Virtual views and columns, basically, quick summary on the overall sort of capabilities. The values are extracted at query time, not ingest and index time, as I mentioned. So the virtual declaration can be at the view level or at the column level. So you can define a whole view as by default being virtual. It's mostly syntactic sugar. It helps you, say like all of the columns by default should be virtual. But then you can say at an individual column, I want my column to be virtual or not. And as I said, you can combine and mix and match those. You can combine the virtual and non-virtual columns, but you can also combine virtual and non-virtual views, right? So by using query-based views, you can have one view which is completely materialized to join it together with completely virtual views, creating really the best of both worlds and very powerful capabilities for interacting with document data in relational semantics. And a bit of secret sauce under the covers, the queries are leveraging the universal index and range indexes where possible, right? So if you have where clauses on columns that are virtual, the optimizer will attempt to use the conditions you've passed in to reduce the working set of documents so that the number of documents it pulls back is minimized, that it has to scan to project out those virtual rows from the documents. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Drew for just a quick demonstration on this.
Thanks, James. So as James highlighted, we can create virtual views against document data. What we're looking at here is a small content analytics dashboard that are going against XML records stored in the MarkLogic database. We can do things like pull detailed information or run aggregates and combine these with other methodologies, for example, query-based views. In this example, we're actually using Grafana as a open source dashboarding tool. And these views are actually projected out and accessible through a few different paradigms. You can use them in the Optic API, as I showed earlier in the hybrid search models, but you can also query them with BI tools that run over traditional SQL, or in this case, GraphQL. So our use case here is I am a BI dashboard user and I want to pull the content in. You see I have a column missing the Medline ID. If I come into this, this particular query, I'll come in here and look at the GraphQL query here, and I'm pulling content URI, PMID, and title. Well, I want to pull the Medline ID. Medline ID. So if I refresh my data set now, I'm going to get an error because this column is not available in the view. But you know our database is pretty large. So if I come over and run a quick estimation, we have over 11 million articles in this database. Well, we created that virtual TDE, as James said, using this virtual view column declaration here against the whole view, and specified the columns that we wanted to pull in. But we see here we have no Medline column. So if I come here and add this column into this virtual view, we will get an instantaneous refresh of the content. We're pulling from the universal index for that column, and we project that out automatically at query time. So we didn't have to go through a long process here of re-indexing all 11 million articles. So it really gives you the best of both worlds, where you can start to pull content as you need in an ad hoc fashion and slowly modify your views in development. All right, James, I'm going to pass the presentation back to you now.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Drew. So in this next section, we're going to talk about a bunch of changes that we've made in on the platform level within MarkLogic, and this is all done to modernize the platform and be able to meet the needs of modern application development. So one of the features I'm really excited to talk about is what we're calling dynamic hosts, right? So in MarkLogic, you have clusters, you have the ability to expand those clusters to be very large, manage huge amounts of data. In MarkLogic 12, we made it even easier to scale up your clusters when you anticipate periods of high demand, and also scale them back down when that demand is reduced. So whenever the query demand on an existing cluster is very high, for example, administrators could turn on additional dynamic hosts to handle that query workload. And when that demand is reduced, we can easily eliminate those dynamic hosts with minimal impact on the cluster. The current process for adding, removing evaluator nodes, or the nodes that are servicing the queries, is a pretty heavyweight process, but dynamic hosts changes that and makes it much easier, much less impactful on the cluster overall in terms of refreshing configuration and clearing caches, etc. Dynamic hosts can come and go without impacting the rest of the cluster, and they also do not count against the overall quorum calculation for high availability. We've also implemented a new token-based cluster join authentication mechanism. It simplifies the way hosts can join the cluster and be authenticated. It gives you more control over performance and cost, especially in cloud or hybrid environments. Really, we see this as a building block feature that we plan on integrating into our Kubernetes and cloud offerings to enable automation of on-demand scaling. As Mitch mentioned at the beginning, we've made a number of enhancements in the area of security. So MarkLogic 12 has the latest OpenSSL running. We've upgraded that to 3.3. Well, might not be the latest anymore. They've been updating that pretty frequently these days. But we upgraded to 3.3 to add support for TLS 1.3 and FIPS 140-3. In addition, we've added support for JSON web key sets. So in MarkLogic 11, we added support for OAuth, and MarkLogic 12, we also add the ability for JSON web key sets to more dynamically manage the keys for your tokens. And this is something we actually would be backporting this into 11.3, just as a FYI. We also support importing certificates with passphrases. Right? So prior to MarkLogic 12, the certificates had to be decrypted before you imported them into MarkLogic, but in MarkLogic 12 now allows you to import those directly in with the passphrase. Operating systems, we now support Red Hat Enterprise Linux 9. We added that in MarkLogic 11, 11.3 a little while ago, but MarkLogic 12 supports Red Hat 9 and Red Hat 8. As noted here, we no longer support Red Hat Linux 7. We also have support for Amazon Linux 2023, Windows 2022, and we have rootless Docker images for RHEL, for the UBI-based images 8 and 9. A couple other notes, Windows 2016 is no longer supported in MarkLogic 12, and the native macOS installer for Intel processors is not supported with MarkLogic 12. Really moving people to using Docker containers for development on Mac laptops with the new ARM M processors. MarkLogic 12 has an upgrade to the Google V8 engine. We upgraded that to version 12.4. That allows you to leverage many of the new JavaScript language features that have been introduced in the last few years. That updates it to ECMAScript 2024. So there's a whole bunch of new JavaScript features that enables, and we'll also be making some improvements to enable some additional compatibility for some of the features that we don't support yet, like big integers, etc. But that's for future roadmap. One note on compatibility, because of the way the new V8 engine works, the JavaScript main modules, they require some updating. There's extensive details in the release notes about this, but for example, main modules, previously you would just put the value at the end that you wanted it to return, but now you have to use this export default syntax for your main modules. Document filters and conversion. So document filters have been upgraded to provide enhanced support for metadata and text extraction for over 1,000 binary formats. So we're just continuing to modernize that capability. The one note is that the document conversion for the legacy Microsoft Office formats. So these are the Office formats, Office 2007 and older. The document conversion capability has been removed. And that conversion capability is not to be confused with filtering. I know the wording is a little bit complicated there, but conversion is the process for converting a Word document into a renderable format in XHTML. And so that capability is removed in MarkLogic 12. We've continued to make a number of enhancements to the MarkLogic Server UIs, query console, monitoring history, admin UI. In the admin UI, we've added paginated responsive tables for really all of the status screens that are in the admin UI. We've added confirmation dialogues and status toasts in the admin UI to improve security, reducing issues with cross-site scripting, etc., and just enhancing the overall usability of the UI. We've made a bunch of improvements to move the accessibility compliance forward for 508 level A compliance, and we still are working on the VPAT. When you're doing rolling upgrades, you really are not supposed to be making changes, so the admin UI now has everything grayed out, so you're not able to change the configurations while the system is in the process of doing rolling upgrades. So just a quick screenshot of what the admin UI status tables look like. We're using the Kendo UI components to show grids. You can use the search bar to reduce the list that you're looking at. So sometimes, with big clusters, maybe you have hundreds of hosts or hundreds and hundreds of forests, and you want to reduce you want to find this status for specific forests. You can use the search dialog, the pagination. It's built into it, so you don't have just big long screen of hundreds and hundreds of forests on one screen. So we find this is a really good improvement that makes the admin status screens way more usable, in my opinion. Admin UI dialogues, as I mentioned, these are all just modal dialogues that are introduced instead of, sort of having different screens where you're having to acknowledge and confirm steps that you want to take in admin UI. This is all just modernizing, moving the admin UI forward. Just a quick view of what those look like. And so last but not least, we have a series of additional API and stability improvements. The REST API transforms versions prior to MarkLogic 12, the REST API transforms, you actually couldn't change metadata, collections, permissions, a number of things that you might expect to be able to. You were not able to make those changes during via REST API transforms. So MarkLogic 12 now adds support for that. The dictionaries for stemming have been updated for 14 different languages. For example, there's about 1,100 new English words were added with new stems. And so these dictionaries are updated across, as I said, 14 different languages, hundreds, thousands of new words introduced to bring those up to date. And MarkLogic 11 added the ability to detect when disks were slowing down, right? Sort of brownout conditions when disks are starting to fail. But it still did not detect like when, if a disk was corrupted. So in MarkLogic 12, we closed that gap as well. So if the disk is corrupted, you can't even write to it at all. MarkLogic 12 will allow you to optionally trigger failover events when that happens. So I know that's a lot to go through, but in summary, we've updated a huge amount of the underlying infrastructure underneath MarkLogic Server, bringing it forward, updating to the most up-to-date libraries, enhancing our security posture, making the product more stable and more maintainable moving forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mitch to talk about upgrading.
Perfect. Thanks, James.
I can find you in here. There you are.
All right. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yep, all good.
Perfect. All right. So with regards to upgrading, I just want to talk about a little bit how we deliver our product, what the releases look like. MarkLogic, with MarkLogic 12, we had an early access. It was released as an innovation release, which includes those new features. We have LTS or long-term support releases, which are more focused on long-term stability and continuity. And these all kind of make up that foundational series where we have that interoperability and compatibility between versions. I do want to highlight, though, that a 12.0 or innovation release, while we're emphasizing new features, it is still stable, it is still fully supported, and it is still production ready. So the difference there being typically in the point releases, they might be introducing new features, whereas for each major release line, we will identify one specific version that will be the most, let's see, supported for the longest duration of time. For example, and we're going to hop to what 11.3 looks like, which is the LTS version for the 11 series. You'll have a period, in this case, it's a number of years where it's active, it's fully supported. That includes bug fixes, security patches, and any platform certifications. It'll then enter a sunset stage, which is still supported, but now focused strictly on bug fixes or security patches. And then we'll reach a retired stage where it'll be limited to critical issues only. What does that mean for upgrading, right? You might be on MarkLogic 9, 10, 11, looking to move to 12. Our recommended path is always to upgrade from major version to the next major version and so on. From a support perspective, that tends to be most ideal. Now we have tested going from 9 to 11 and 10 to 12, and that's fine. It both works, but MarkLogic will always upgrade, and we document, or MarkLogic always has updates, and when you upgrade, we document the incompatibilities, but your apps may require some extra TLC and need to be modified mildly to account for those incompatibilities. So our recommendation is always to go from major version to the next major version and so on. Now, upgrade services, sometimes you may be running on an older version, you might be looking at assessing new features, or maybe don't have the resources in-house to upgrade. MarkLogic and Progress offer a professional services team that's ready to provide expert support so that you can really maximize your investment in our product. Whether that's a health check, an upgrade accelerator, or even migrating to the cloud, our professional services team can help you along that way. And last, I want to put a plug in for the Progress Data Platform Summit, which is coming to Washington, D.C. in September. Our professional services team will be showcasing the latest MarkLogic 12 features. There's going to be a half-day event that will provide technical insight and best practices for implementing these innovations in any RAG or search application. So for more information, I believe we're going to have a team member post in the chat where you can register, but that can be done at our website at progress.com/events/data platform summit, and we will send that link out shortly. So with that, thank you all for joining. We're going to move into a brief segment of Q&A. And we already have one question in the chat. This is around dynamic hosts. James, this is going to be towards you. You discussed a little bit about dynamic hosts being a building block for our Kubernetes or cloud environments. The question is, can you also do dynamic hosts on-premise as well?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. Yeah, definitely. I mean, so dynamic hosts at the MarkLogic level, really, it's we are enabling you to be able to add or remove those hosts more easily at the MarkLogic level, but we don't control the infrastructure under the covers, right? So you need actual hosts for MarkLogic to run on. So it's it's a natural fit for cloud or containerized environments where you can easily provision new hosts on demand as you need them to join the cluster. But if you have that facility on premise, yeah, it's completely up to you. You have the ability to use that feature on premise as well.
Awesome. Thanks, James. We have another question coming in. Can virtual views overwhelm the server? Is there any throttling? James.
Yeah, so I guess the short answer about throttling is there isn't currently any throttling, but it's an interesting idea. So we don't have any throttling really on any query mechanisms other than request monitoring allow you to control canceling queries if they are using too much resources, etc. But beyond the request monitoring capability, there's currently no throttling in for virtual views. But just note that the virtual views are executing queries similar to the way we run other queries in the server. But the main difference is that now on each of the data nodes, there will be a streaming process of documents where those documents will need to stream through the expanded tree cache to extract the values out before returning the rows to the evaluator node. So, I mean, of course, like anything, performance testing is definitely required, so encouraged in your environment to understand how that workload is going to be different than the current query workload. But yeah, it's an interesting idea about introducing some additional throttling capabilities, and definitely we'll make a note of that.
Awesome. Thanks for that question. Drew, we have a question that I believe we're going to pass over to you. This is a question around how are vector embeddings generated? Like, do you specify embedded triples or XPaths to specific nodes?
Sure. There's actually a few different mechanisms that we provide to put those embeddings into the records. So the embedding models and large language models are not provided by Progress. You would select one from the market. Be sure to read the terms and conditions and understand what you're getting into with those, since they are third-party software. But For example, if you're using, say, OpenAI or Azure, you can use the MarkLogic Flux tool, for example, to load in the records and specify options to what LLM to connect to and which embedding model to use to generate those vector embeddings. How it's done, you also use XPath to select the parts of the document that you want to generate that embedding for. So in my example there, I selected the article title and abstract to be used as part of the content for the embeddings. So you specify those XPaths, specify the model and connection properties to your embedding model, and Flux will automatically generate a vector embedding using those models and place them into your source document. You can also use tooling, part of the popular frameworks like LangChain for J or LangChain or Spring AI. Those methods, those libraries and frameworks are third party, but they also include APIs to connect to those. Then you would just generate those embeddings and place them in the document before writing it to MarkLogic. As part of the configuration, those vectors will be selected in your TDE and you will specify that is a vector column. We could follow up with some links to blog posts that walk you through this exact methodology and workflow for data loading, as well as the querying and configuration side.
Awesome. Thanks, Drew. James, there's a question that came up around the converters. Will there be, or is there an alternative for the PDF Office conversion that is removed?
Yeah, so just to clarify, for the Office conversion that's removed, it specifically is for Microsoft Office 2007 and older formats. So if you are still if you need a document conversion capability where you need to convert Office 2007 and older documents into like renderable HTML, we would like to know more about your use case and really how important that is to you, because at this point we don't have any plans to provide conversion for those formats. To be clear, though, the document filtering capability that allows you to extract textual content, still works against those old formats if you need to extract text for search, like for RAG, et cetera, right? Which is, the more common use case. The document conversion for Microsoft Office, like the newer formats, like Open Office compatible formats, et cetera, that conversion pipeline is still in MarkLogic 12. So if you have newer Office documents, then that conversion pipeline is still there in MarkLogic 12. For PDF, so our research into this found that most of our customers that were doing PDF conversion were extracting the text for search and retrieval, not for actually rendering those PDFs. So our current plan is not to add a new capability for producing renderable XHTML extraction or conversion in MarkLogic Server, because the external tooling is typically what our customers end up using anyway, because the PDF conversion is a very complex process, and found that the capability that was in MarkLogic was left some things to be desired. We found that as I said, the tooling that was needed to actually produce PDF rendering with the fidelity that most of our customers needed was beyond what we could provide built into the server. So most customers ended up using something outside of the server. So all that said, if you have a use case where you need to convert PDF into renderable content inside of MarkLogic, definitely reach out, and we'd like to talk to you more about that.
Awesome. Thanks, James.
To add to one thing to add about the PDFs, MarkLogic can also store the binaries as a record in the system. And the Progress Kendo UI library does have a PDF viewer that you can render the PDF in the browser natively through the JavaScript component. So be sure to check that out as well.
Yeah,
great plug for that. Thanks, Drew. There's another question around, do we have any plans to support MCP? And short answer is it is something that we're actively looking into. The primary focus of, say, the MarkLogic MCP server would be targeted towards a developer persona or a data scientist persona, really looking to streamline or improve part of that experience where you are working with some of the key MarkLogic capabilities. This is still something that we're kind of innovating on and looking into what exactly it means to offer a MarkLogic MCP server, but it is something that we're looking into.
We also have customers implementing MCP servers themselves on using MarkLogic as a backend. If you are attending the Data Summit, be sure to join one of the technical briefings of one of our partners is showing MCP working against MarkLogic.
Yes. All right, we'll give it about 1 more minute to see if there are any other questions. Appreciate everyone for joining. Please go and take a look at the registration for the Progress Data Summit. There'll be some exciting discussions from both current employees and many of our partners. Great to hear what they're doing with their own implementations of MarkLogic. I'm not seeing any other questions coming in, so we'll go ahead and wrap up. Appreciate you all for joining. It was great being here with you today, and have a great rest of the week. Thanks all.
Thank you.